Thanks for stopping on our channel, which is dedicated to central heating. And as you can see, I've been doing this a long time. Sometimes when we come to our autumn season and the heating is being switched on, we run our hands across the top and it feels cold. Here it's a little bit warmer. And we get lots of advice from these experts saying, yeah, just let the air out and that's fine. That's the wrong advice. There is a particular sequence that you must follow before you let any air out of here. Let me show you. If we simply came here to remove the air, then the pressure in the system, if you have a Combi system, would obviously go down, which is not good. So the first part is we'll go to the room thermostat to turn it off by setting a low temperature requirement. 16 for a digi, 5 for an analog, which I'll show you in a few minutes. The second thing we need to do is to make sure that the pump is stopped is by switching the boiler off. Waiting until the pump stops, because if it's super hot, you could have a situation of pump overrun. We can't stop it, we can't change it. We just have to wait for the boiler thermostat to bring the temperature down below 59 degrees. Once we've achieved that, then we can come and have a look at the radiator and let the air out. If you have a Combi boiler, brilliant, because there's a gauge, a water pressure gauge. We need to be starting from 1, maybe 1.2 at the most. So as we let the air out of here, the pressure in the boiler and the system will then decrease. And we're going to need to top that up. And I've made a small video how to do that, sequence from 1 to 1. So it's going to be room stat off, boiler off, and then we can vent the radiator. All we need is some kitchen roll, tissue paper, and a radiator key. So we'll put this under here, and then with the radiator key, we just gently turn it open until we see water, as we do. Gently turn it off, don't be too heavy-handed, mop it up, and now this radiator is full. You may have another radiator, second radiator that also wants doing. So why does this happen? Well, this is basically to do with the pipe work. There's too much 15 mil, not enough 22, and it's a case of balancing. So that's why you get the odd one that keeps venting and venting and venting. So the way to do it is to rebalance the system, paying special attention to this one or the other one if there is a second one. Just open up the lock shield, the return valve, so more water stays in here and is allowed. And also, what will happen is if the pressure is too high on a Combi system, 1.5 bar or more, or 1.5 atmosphere or more for my Euro friends, that pump will create air bubbles which will go through the system. And because the installers put lots of thin 15 mil pipe, it will go racing towards this radiator and the air bubbles will obviously go to the top. And that's why we have air in the top of the radiator. To solve the problem, we simply open up the lock shield, as I said earlier, and hopefully that will slow down the problem. But the basic situation is too much 15 mil, not enough 22. Before we can vent any radiator, we must go to the room thermostat to turn it down low, and then to the boiler to switch it off to stop the pump rotating. If you have a digital thermostat, then what we're going to need to do is simply take it down to 16 degrees, and that'll make sure that the boiler doesn't kick in. If you've still got one of these analog 230 volt room thermostats, you're going to need to turn this right down to 5 degrees frost. Because remember, in the other video, I did remind people this can be 6 degrees out, overheating and underheating. So obviously at 14 degrees, this could kick in. I think it was around the year 2000 when Europe banned analog 230 volt room thermostats in place of open therm and digital. This company, Honeywell Home, Danfoss and Drayton, makes some amazing low running cost digital thermostats. So check them out. As always, the boiler manufacturer makes the best compatible controls. But after that, it's going to be Danfoss, Drayton, Honeywell Home, Open Therm or digital. If you have a Combi boiler, there'll be a water gauge. We want to make sure that we know where we're starting from. So on an intergas boiler, we simply press the off button and we can see here we've got 1 bar, which is perfect because there are 10 large radiators on this system and it doesn't need any more than that. So now we know that when we vent that radiator, then this number will go down to 0 point something and then we need to top it back up to 1 bar. The reason that we have to have the pump off and stopped is because we want stagnant water here in the radiator and in the system. Because if I was to open this valve with the pump on, it would suck air into this radiator and then around the system, which obviously would be counterproductive. And that's the reason why we have to turn the boiler off, make sure the pump has stopped. Then we can come back to the radiator, kitchen towel, put the valve into here, the bleed radiator key. Once we see water, then we can turn it off gently, mop up the residue, return to the boiler, top up as necessary back to 1 bar, switch it on to constant, turn up the room thermostat, and then the whole system will be fully bled and vented and ready to go. So if we look at this one on this side, we can see on this one here, it's around about 28 degrees. If we go to the top, there we are, it's dropped right down here to 23. So therefore, we've got lots of air. Let me show you how to vent a towel rail. So this one here, all we're going to do is put the tissue paper underneath, very carefully open this, and we can hear this bubbling up. And as soon as we see water coming out the top, we know we are there. There we go. Just gently turn it off. Don't be too heavy-handed on that. Gently turn it off. This radiator is now filled. As predicted, we've obviously lost our pressure down to there, which is fine, but no problem. So recheck your gauge. So now we're just going to top up the boiler until it gets to 1 bar, and then we can switch off. The boiler's set, and then we'll switch the system back on, turn the room thermostat up, and the system goes back to normal working mode. So thanks for watching this. If you've got any comments, please leave them below, and don't forget to subscribe and like our channel.